The Sixers are on a 3-game winning streak. And is it unbelievable? No. It's exactly what you expected when you go up against the Washington Wizards, the defeated and deflated Golden State Warriors, and the Giannis-less, Antetokounmpo-less Milwaukee Bucks. And they had Thanos out there. If they wanted an Antetokounmpo, they could have played Thanos, but realistically, they would have gave their fighting chances less of a fight. Now, the Sixer team is on a 3-game winning streak. And the question is, do they finally have their stuff together, or is the luck just rolling in the right direction at a perfect time? The answers to this question are realistically right in front of you. The Philadelphia 76ers are playing better because their teams they're playing are substantially worse. Now, if this team was playing the Pistons, the Magic, the Heat, the Thunder, the Nuggets, and they were competing against these top tier squads who are top in the standings, I would understand what all the hype is about. I would actually be on board with giving the Sixers cheers and not jeers. But this team still has so many question marks that have to be answered. Last night, against the Milwaukee Bucks, you saw Tyrese Maxey take a back seat, which is probably the first time Tyrese Maxey wasn't riding shotgun or wasn't in the driver's seat, making sure the bus is going full steam ahead. This is the first time you saw Tyrese Maxey take a load off and watch the other players on the team control the game. Tyrese only had 12 points. And the leading scorers for Philadelphia in that matchup against Milwaukee, I mean, names that you would love to hear leading and scoring. Quentin Grimes, Paul George. Those guys played, I want to say, extraordinary basketball. Really good basketball. Quentin Grimes had close to a perfect game, not missing many shots, only missing 2, only missing 1 3 on the night. And Paul George is slowly progressing to being himself. Now, how important is Paul George to his team's success? In my honest opinion, I think Paul George is probably the second most important player on this team. First most important is obviously the MVP candidate himself, Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey, without Tyrese, this team would be absolutely nothing. Not because they don't have the talent and the offensive firepower. They just wouldn't have the winning attitude. They just wouldn't have the fighting spirit. They just wouldn't be willing to compete on a night in, night out basis, regardless of who's out there on the court. In large part, that's everything that Tyrese embodies, and that's everything that Tyrese is about. Now, Paul George, being the clear number 2, second most important player on the squad, that has a large part to do with how much money he's being made. You can't make up $55 million and disperse it if it's all being bunched up and bundled for one player. So you need Paul George to play close to or similarly to a $50 million evaluation, maybe a $40 million evaluation. But Paul George is the second most important player on the squad because defense. Nick Nurse has given Paul George rave reviews since the season started on his defensive effort, on his defensive intangibles, and his defensive IQ. And those are 3 things that regardless of how old you are, regardless of how healthy you are, you should be able to give effort. Your intangibles are what God gave you with the length, the strength, and the height. And his IQ is another thing that age just can't take away. And honestly, age only makes your defensive IQ that much better because now you're finding shortcuts. Now you're finding cheats. Now you already know how to manipulate the refs and you manipulate the game for your benefit. So, Paul George being the second most important player in the squad comes down to, 1, his defensive effort, defensive intangibles, and defensive attitude on a night in, night out basis has been the best on this team. You can count on Paul George to attempt to lock up your best player or at least put your best player in difficult positions so their shots aren't wide open or aren't as easy as they have been against other Sixer defenders. Plus, if Paul George is able to play Paul George-esque basketball, which we saw him play against those Milwaukee Bucks, I don't love that, and I don't like that Paul George had a 20-point game against the Bucks, and that all the conversation around him is going to be, he's back. Paul George is back. We got Paul George. Paul George played motivated basketball against a head coach that he is motivated to destroy each and every night he sees him. Doc Rivers and Paul George have beef. Doc Rivers and Paul George don't see eye to eye. And Doc Rivers doesn't think Paul George is that good, which is exactly why Paul went out there to prove somebody wrong. And that somebody was Glenn Rivers. If he's doing this on a nightly basis, where he's getting you 20 points, he's playing great defense, he's rebounding a few times, he's swinging the ball a little bit, but he's shooting above 50%. That's not a $55 million max contract player, but he's definitely worth some money. He's definitely worth at least 30 mil, especially on a team where offensively you're not sure who's going to give you buckets on a night in, night out basis. Offensively, sometimes Quentin Grimes is stupendous. Other times, Quentin Grimes is despicable. Paul George's importance comes from his IQ, from his consistency, and from the fact that he is still looked at as an all-star. Klay Thompson, who's having a down year, is still being guarded like Klay Thompson. They're sticking to him like glue. They're not letting him run off screens. They're not giving him open shots. They're just making his older life a little more difficult. That's what you want defenses to worry about Paul George exactly for. Stick to him like glue. Don't give him open shots. Make his offensive life more difficult on the defensive end. That's what you want teams to do to Paul George, because if Paul George is getting more coverage, more looks, more attention, Tyrese Maxey is getting more open shots. Quentin Grimes is getting more open shots. Jared McCain is getting more open shots. And those are the guys you want to see make those shots. But realistically, guys, the key to success for this team, it's got to be shooting. Because when this team shoots the ball lights out, it is night-night to other teams. When this team can shoot the three ball at a high percentage, similar to the way they did at the beginning of the season, the first 6 games of the season, guys, the Sixers remained in the top 3 for three-point percentage. When this team is in the top of the league in not three-point attempts, but three-point efficiency, there's no stopping them. And there's no telling who can or who will stop them. Because for the first time, I think in a long time, I would say Sixer history, but we're going to go a long time, this team has 5 reliable three-point shooting threats. I was going to say 4, but if you put Jabari Walker out there, if you put Andre Drummond out there, if you put Joel Embiid out there, these bigs, they can shoot. They can stretch the floor. They can space it a little bit. And when you have 5 guys out, that gives Tyrese Maxey way too much space to operate. When you have 5 guys out, that gives Joel Embiid way too much opportunity to operate. When you've got 5 guys out, Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain, Paul George, even Justin Edwards have the opportunity to play off the catch, attack downhill, and then not use too many dribble moves, because the bag of these 4 players, it's not the biggest bag, okay? This is not 5 guys, bottom of the bag, let's get the fries out. No. This is a kid's meal of basketball maneuvers that these guys have. It's still a bag. They can still treat you right, but it's not the vast arsenal of basketball plays that you'd have from Joel, that you have from Tyrese. Quentin Grimes doesn't have too much handle. Paul George still has handle, but doesn't have the quick first step. Jabari Walker, no real bag there. Jared McCain, not the biggest of bags there. You want these guys to be playing off of the catch. And success for the Sixers, when you'll get more closeouts, more aggressive closeouts off the catch, is when that shot is falling. The key to success for this team is keeping the floor spaced, allowing guys to knock down shots, and making sure they get open shots at that. That's when it's going to keep this team in championship conversation and championship contention. And when they do that, I haven't seen any other team compete. I've seen other teams scratching their head for, what do we do? Who do we guard? Who do we double? Who do we blitz? I dare you to throw a zone out there. Joel Embiid is a zone destroyer, a zone eater. Pass the ball into the middle, into the paint, into the top of the free throw. Joel is either going to knock down a mid-range shot, they're going to find a way to throw a lazy double at him. He's going to find the cutting Dominic Barlow to the basket, the cutting Kelly Oubre to the basket, or the outspace Jabari Walker, Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain. The key to success is making sure this team shoots the best, which is why they should not bring back Ben Simmons. Listen, there's been so many Sixer fans out there who are still trusting the process, who want to finish the story, who want to bring back the former number 1 overall pick Ben Simmons, because this team does have point guard troubles at times. At times when Jared McCain is out there being the point guard, the officiator, the creator, the offense is not as electrifying. The offense doesn't have as much ball mobility. It gets stagnant. Jared doesn't have first step explosion to get to the rim, to get to the basket. Jared McCain's mid-range and three-point shot I give them are efficient and consistent and reliable. But Jared McCain putting his head down, nose down, and getting to the basket, he doesn't have the speed to do it. Kyle Lowry doesn't have the speed to do it. So adding Ben Simmons could add more rim pressure that this team is definitely lacking daily or nightly. But adding Ben Simmons will destroy the one thing that's made this team so great, and that is the floor spacing. You put Dominic Barlow out there on the defensive end, he may be better than Ben Simmons. You put Jabari Walker out there, and on the defensive end, he can compete to what Ben Simmons would do. If you put these guys on the offensive end, I would say they are light years above the last example of Ben Simmons' game that we saw. These guys offensively, they can shoot. They attack the hole with aggression. They're not afraid of the free throw line. I think it would make more sense for this team to, one, not mess up the chemistry in the locker room, because chemistry is one thing we haven't talked about at all, but they all like each other. They all get along, and they all root for each other. And the floor spacing that makes this team so great, Ben Simmons would potentially and definitely ruin. I say that because when Dominic Barlow's passing up open threes, Kyle Lowry is screaming at him to shoot. When Jabari Walker passes up open threes, the bench is screaming at him to shoot. These guys are not passing up open shots anymore. And when you add Ben Simmons to that roster, that's exactly what you're going to have to be concerned with. A guy passing up open looks, a guy afraid of the free throw line, and a guy who offensively is just a screen setter, just a rim roller, and maybe a questionable finisher because his finishing at the rim or at the basket isn't on an elite level to where you want it to be. Dominic Barlow finishes through contact consistently. Jabari Walker finishes through contact consistently. These guys don't even get the fouls called that they should, and they are still attacking, being aggressive, and again, not afraid of getting fouled. But if you think Ben Simmons should come back, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. That's what I want you to do. This is why this podcast is for the people, brought to you by the people. Daily, we're giving you Sixer discourse. Like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Tell me if you think Ben Simmons should come back playing for free. The only good part about Ben Simmons offering to come back is that he said he'll play for free, which gives the Sixers a chance to get some of that money back that he didn't deserve, some of that money back that he stole from them. Like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Tell me what you think.